question is to the Prime Minister. Western Sydney is Australia's third largest economy. As one of our nation's fastest-growing regions, over the next decade, 1 million more people will call our region home. As it stands, 2/3 of our workforce must commute every day for their employment. Can the Prime Minister please explain how the government's agenda in innovation, infrastructure and cities will create the smart jobs for our children in Western Sydney?
The Prime Minister.
Well, I thank the honourable member for her question, and I note, Mr Speaker, how passionately and persuasively she's advocated for better infrastructure in her community. And I've been a regular visitor on the train. If you're out going out there, always get the Blue Mountains train, Mr Speaker. It's got fewer stops. But the train been out there on the train to Penrith, and in April we opened the Werrington Business Park, Business Precinct, which will connect researchers from the University of Western Sydney for business and help commercialise their ideas. We returned there last month with the Minister for Industry, Innovation and Science, the Assistant Ministers for Science and Innovation, and representatives from some of Australia's leading tech startups and universities. And we had a very, very constructive working session with a member for Lindsay talking about the content of the government's innovation statement, which will, of course, be released shortly. Now, over the next 20 years, that precinct, which is dedicated to innovation, and we met some amazing startups there, some really outstanding, innovative companies that are working in the collaborative spaces there to create jobs and energy and investment in Western Sydney. Over the next 20 years, that precinct alone will have the capacity to generate 6,000 jobs. And I also note the Sydney Science Park, which is also in the honourable member's electorate. That's been recently opened, and that will have the capacity to create 12,200 jobs, educate 10,000 students and provide a place to live for those 10,000 students as well. Now, in terms of infrastructure, we are the first government in generations to push ahead and start planning the design for a second airport in Western Sydney. That is a foundation stone for the wider planning and strategy needed for Western Sydney to continue its growth as an international hub. It is vital that there is more investment, more jobs in Western Sydney. Sydney, the city where I live, which I love, has one big defect. Its central business district is nowhere near the centre. It's actually out on the eastern edge of the city. And so we need to see strong economic growth, strong jobs, industry right through the city. And so that includes at centres like Parramatta, like Penrith, like Campbelltown, right through the city, because otherwise the city becomes utterly unbalanced. And the airport is going to be a significant part of that infrastructure development in Western Sydney. That, as the member for the honourable member opposite says rubbish, it is hard to believe that the Labor Party imagines they can represent Western Sydney and they write off the airport as rubbish. Really, Mr Speaker, they have checked out on Western Sydney.